started, just a couple of thank yous. Thank you to CAN TV for recording our event. And thank you to the Social Justice Council here at First Unitarian Church for co-hosting this event with us. I'm Jordan Hesterman from Becoming We the People, and we've been co-hosting these panels together for a couple of years now. And CAN TV has been great to be a part of our panel discussions for the last couple of years also. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panelists very quickly. I'm going to go over their bios, tell you a little bit about them and a little bit about their organizations, and then we will jump right into the questions. Okay. So next to me here is Dale Asis. He is with the Coalition of African, Arab, Asian, European, and Latino Immigrants of Illinois. He is the founding executive director, and it is one of the largest immigrant-led coalitions in the country. He is also the president of the, should I ask you how to pronounce this one as well, Guiamatsia Foundation Worldwide, a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting Filipino diaspora philanthropy. In 2009, he established a network of over 150 diaspora donors in Chicago that donate to over 50 countries worldwide. He earned his Master's of Arts program in Social Sciences at the University of Chicago. In 2007-2008, he received a fellowship grant from the Chicago Community Trust Fellowship for Community Leaders. He's also received the Ford Foundation Leadership for Changing World of Work. He has spoken extensively on immigrant issues over the last 15 years. And he also teaches about race and policy advocacy at Loyola University of Chicago in their graduate school of social work. And he also provides capacity building and organizational consulting to ethnic community organizations in Chicago. And next to him we have Eric Rodriguez, which for those of you that are in the audience is not on your flyer, but I'll be happy to get you that information later. He is from Chicago and grew up in the Humboldt Park neighborhood. He's the proud son of a formerly undocumented family whose father was a day laborer and mother is currently a domestic worker. Eric started organizing at the age of 12 with other Latino and African American youth in order to improve environmental conditions in the Humboldt Park community. At 21, he became the first hired organizer at Latino Union of Chicago, collaborating with street corner day laborers to preserve the human right for any person to search for work on public streets. In 2004, he, with other Latino Union leaders, founded the only day laborer worker center of its kind in the Midwest. Since its founding, the Worker Center has lifted the standards for hundreds of day laborers on the north side of Chicago. Together with day leaders, he helped develop the tools necessary to improve economic, social, and labor conditions. Eric has been really busy. Currently, Eric is collaborating with women to introduce the Illinois Domestic Worker Bill of Rights, which will allow Illinois to be the second state to recognize domestic workers as employees, helping end one of the remaining legacies of slavery in our country. I skipped ahead a little bit, but I think that gave you an idea of who Eric is. All right, next to him, we have Gary Kenzer from the Polish American Association. Since 2009, Gary has been the executive director of the Polish American Association. During the past 25 years in the field of social services, he has been in a variety of leadership roles, such as the Illinois State Executive Director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and the Executive Director of there we go, the Israeli equivalent of the American Red Cross. He is a graduate of Loyola University of Chicago, and he received his master's degree in social work from the University of Illinois at Chicago. He serves in a number of other leadership roles, including director of the Polish American Chamber of Commerce, and he's a member of the Polish Task Force of the Illinois State Comptroller's Office. This past summer, he was asked by the Mayor's Office of New Americans to serve in a leadership role in their committee to make Chicago the most friendly immigrant city in the world. All right, next to him Dushyat Sharma, and he was born in New Delhi, India, and immigrated here to the U.S. with his parents and sisters in 1984. He attended public schools and received his MS from University of Illinois at Chicago. He's a full-time husband and father of 3 and part-time financial services representative. He's looking to make a career change toward the technology field and is interested in service opportunities for inner-city youth and young adults. He works with the Bhakti Yoga Society, a religious organization based on a service attitude, and he's also with the Indo-American Center, which is who he's representing tonight. Next to him we have Kokou Aziki from the Togolese in Chicago Association. He's a project management professional, administrative officer at AFROM International Trades, and he's the president of the Association of Togolese in Chicagoland, which is a 501c3 community-based organization. All right. Next to him we have Luis Guiamatsia. He's from the Cameroonian Brothers Association of Chicago. He is a software architect at InStep Software, LLC. He was born in Cameroon and immigrated to Canada to continue his higher education and collegiate degree in electrical engineering. He worked for a few years for companies in Canada and then moved to the U.S. in 2003, where he not only became an accomplished professional in the software business, but also an avid community organizer within a strong group of Cameroonians. He currently is the president of the Cameroonian Brotherhood Association of Chicago. And last, but certainly not least, down at the end, we have Simba Tayari, sorry, I mispronounced that. And he is the founder and executive director of the Swahili Institute of Chicago, and they work toward trying to preserve the some of the language and culture and people history of that area. So I think that that gives everybody a good idea who we have on the panel. So the first section of this panel, we decided to start it off just slightly differently than the other ones. Because this is talking about immigration and immigrants, and of course during the course of how we discuss this, we will not be using the word illegal because it's wrong. We will be using undocumented immigrants. And so one of the things I wanted them to look at to begin with was facts and myths about immigration, and especially for those of you that are watching at home, in case people are unaware of which things, there's a lot of false information that goes around about immigration and people who are undocumented. So I'm going to read a statement, and they are going to answer all together with fact or myth. And hopefully we'll be loud enough so that this will work out. So being undocumented is a choice. Fact or myth?
Myth.
Okay. Being undocumented immigrants receive free education in the United States.
Myth.
Undocumented immigrants receive free health care in the United States.
Yes.
Immigrants do not make an effort to learn English. Immigrants are taking jobs away from Americans. Immigrants do not pay taxes. All right, so we cleared up a few things that I think, I hear this pretty regularly from people, they're big arguments all the time about immigration. It's, that, they get free health care and they're coming here and taking our jobs and they're getting free education, and I know that this is not true, and we have a whole panel of people that just said that's not true. So we're going to jump right into the first question, which and everyone has about 1 to 2 minutes. Please try to stay within your time frame, otherwise I'm going to have to throw something over at you. Which I don't have much. I have a pen and my cell phone, so it's the pen. So what are the top 3 issues immigrants face in the U.S. or just in the Chicago area? And we'll start with you. Make sure you put the microphone in front of you.
Well, the top 3 is, I'd say, integration, Integration. I mean, for the community, I work with specifically with street corner day laborers and domestic workers that include caregivers and nannies and house cleaners, being part of national, also networks of organizations that represent this sector. So it's primarily an immigrant worker rights movement that we're a part of. For us is similarly, which was just stated, through immigration reform, but interconnected with that is the jobs, the criminalization of immigrants, especially with laws like 1070, Arizona, and secure communities, and also the current labor standards that need to catch up to the current changes of the economy.
Hi. Well, for Polish people, it's a little bit different because we sort of blend in, but yet we're from different parts of the world. And for us, we're a population that has been slighted by the American government because unlike many other countries, 37 countries that have a part of what's called a visa waiver program, Poland has been excluded from this program forever. And here's a country that has stood, shoulder to shoulder with America, and America closes the door on immigrants trying to come here. People from Poland for business, for trade, for tourism, whatever. You have to have a visa. It's not waived, but there are 37 countries that it is waived. And we feel that that's a slight. So that's a very big important thing. The other big issue for us is people don't understand that coming from a communist country, you look at the world very differently. For example, and then I'll just close with this, you see on the buses and trains it says the statement, if you see something, say something. So it sounds like an innocent statement. But in Poland, if you see something and say something, you're gone. Okay, so from an American lens it makes sense, but from an East European lens, it's a terrible thing to say.
First of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. And I think top 3 issues that I found out from immigrants, speaking in a contemporary time frame, although it probably has ramifications since immigration has been around in the United States, I found that employment, food, safety, and conversation. So I have 4 reasons. And I think the most important one is the conversation, because that actually opens the doors to a lot of the other things that can be accessible by immigrants by themselves if they are able to speak the native language of America, which I would just simply say is English. And if everyone can speak in English and communicate in English, then that's a medium of most of the countries and most of the world. So I think literacy, of course, is a very important thing, and because that literacy will allow people to have conversations at the dinner table, at church, at temple, at different places of worship, different places of meeting, and that way they can figure out how to get employment or how to get food for themselves. And I think that probably that is one of the like a center of influence for all the other issues and pragmatics that go into becoming a thriving population, a thriving immigrant community.
That microphone over this way. Grab that.
I want to thank you for inviting me here tonight to talk about this important issue. For me, the top 3 issues for immigrants here. The first one is language for those coming from countries where English is not spoken as national language. And the second one is integration, cultural integration to the American society, especially when it comes to criminality. It's a very important issue we face here, which I want to bring up. Also, the last thing is the job issues. Sometimes when immigrants come over here, it's difficult for them to access to jobs because they don't have best experience over here. When they go to background check, they don't have any background here. So it's a very important thing for we as
say from the Cameroonian perspective in Africa, one of the very first issues is just to be undocumented to begin with. It leads to many issues. Just that safety net that everybody thinks they can sleep well, but unfortunately, just being undocumented is my first concern, and that's actually what is in our conversation all the time. My second big issue will also go toward opportunities. I think that in Africa, for instance, when we grew up, my parents and most of our parents were all geared towards schools, and usually very good schools. So the only thing that we know until the age of 20 is going to school. So we have a lot of Africans here that are very highly educated, but they were educated in a colonial system that just fits the colors, which is the French. Unfortunately, when they come here in the US, it doesn't match because the schooling system is totally different. So they find themselves at lost here, not able to have a transfer of skills. Myself, I ended up being educated in Canada, so I integrate properly in the American system, which most of my brothers don't have that ability. So I think integration, as I heard earlier, is a big issue, and part of it would be to somehow adjust the fact that if you're a medical doctor in Africa, you might also not be too far from being also a medical doctor in the US. So that would be my second issue about opportunities. And obviously the third one for me would be the cultural issue, the language. Something that few countries in Africa are actually English speaking, like Nigeria, some South Africa, and most of it is also French speaking, like Cameroon, or French and English, like Cameroon also. So that little language barrier need to be an issue that immigrants themselves can address.
Yeah, something. Thank you for the invitation. Swahili Institute is actually a Pan-African organization, so we get feedback from many different places, but especially from East Africa. In this issue, I'm finding out that one of the main issues people are finding jobs and economic security once they get here. And as he's speaking, sometimes people are very qualified, and there's a very long process of getting them qualified here. Sometimes, and it's very expensive usually too. So that has caused a lot of problems. It causes insecurity for people, economic security and stress. And often people are employed in situations where they are overqualified, obviously. Another problem that's been mentioned by quite a few people as I was speaking to them is they do face discrimination that they didn't anticipate. What they hear about America before they get here, they're a little bit surprised to get here, and they just think everyone's going to be equal and everyone has opportunity. But when they get here, they do face discrimination, they face racism, coming from Africa. So that also causes a lot of stress in the families for many people. And also there's, he spoke a little bit earlier about language barrier. Some countries is greater than others. It was funny, I was speaking to one fellow and he was telling me, he said, the police stopped me and he was saying, well, do you speak English? Actually, he was from Nigeria. His English sounds fine to me, but I said, well, do you speak English? And he said, yeah, I speak the Queen's English, He said, that's what, the English that we speak is what we were taught. And so the policeman tells him, well, I speak the King's English. But anyway, that's just some of the situation that they face. But that, the jobs, also some of the discrimination, racism that they face, and this long process of getting documentation, some issues.
Chicago is the most segregated city in the United States, and a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of people are really surprised when they visit here from other places and you tell them that, because they visit the downtown area and they see that everybody's intermingling and it really looks diverse, but where people go home to live and compared to where they work and where they're at for recreation is very different. So the question that I asked the panelists is, how does this affect the immigrants that they are working with? So I'm going to start with Eric.
Okay, so, that's a very, big word as far as the segregation, because we need to understand the context of that and how it affected with Chicago and Chicago history. I mean, you walk around Chicago, those of us who learn a lot about our history, we start understanding even the structures built around the city in the past decades were purposely created to segregate. And let's remember where that comes from, the roots, and let's not forget, and this is something that we have strong conversations with many of our recent arrived members, is really having a historical context of this country and how it gets started. Let's really believe and not numb ourselves from the realities of the massacre and the way that our country was founded. A way that has not died, right? That throughout different points of our history has been clearly shown through slavery, Jim Crow laws, to the current new Jim Crow laws of criminalizing people of color. We created an industrial prison complex which was filled by our black brothers and sisters from this country, and now has been expanded to include immigrants and people of indigenous. So for us, the word segregation is very strong because it really helps amplify that whole divide and conquer and confusion in our communities. In the founding of our country, at one point, free slaves, poor whites, indigenous people organized to try to create a new start for America. But even in that moment, they were divided and conquered, where a totem pole of hatred was started, keeping our black brothers and sisters and indigenous brothers and sisters in the most bottom aspects of our totem pole. And it continues to this day. So segregation is a strong topic for us as far as not helping in the dialogue of true immigration reform, the ones that we actually need, and seeing our immigrant brothers and sisters as an important key element of our country since its founding, right? So having segregation completely, obviously isolates our communities from integration, from communication and dialogue with people who've spent generations already here, and forgetting that we are all sons and daughters of immigrants at one point.
We see this issue slightly different because Polish people are everywhere. In areas, in African American communities, there are Polish people. In white communities, there are Polish people. In Latino communities, there are Polish people. So we are everywhere in this area. When you've got just under 1 million people, you're pretty much all over the place. But what our sense is that we feel very disconnected. There's a real sense of disconnection. We don't know where to turn to. We don't trust the government. For us, it's not a matter of that we want to get connected to the government, because government for us is a very sour taste in our mouths, coming from Poland and from communism. It's something we just don't want to do. A lot of reasons, when the census, for example, when you don't answer the forms, people come to the door, right, to ask the question. That won't work in the Polish community because we don't answer doorbells from strangers. We just don't do it. So again, it's looking at it from a different lens than the American lens. It's one of the reasons why I was very excited to work this past summer as a volunteer for the Mayor's Office of New Americans to create a pathway for making Chicago the most immigrant-friendly city in the world. So that was for me a very exciting project, and more information is going to come out. But I do agree with you that as a lifelong Chicagoan, segregation is a very painful subject for me.
Thank you. I think segregation is, as much as we would like to say that it should be unnatural, but I think it's a natural thing. Because people tend to stay with their own people. But I think that the political issue or the social issue is that has the government or, you know, organizational entities, have they created this? And I think the answer lies within itself. It's sort of you know, whoever was, and this is really not where I want to take my response, so I'll just say that how the country came about is sort of, you know, indicative of what is present today. And my idea is that, you know, maybe I'm an exception to the rule. I can pretty much bond with all types of people and personalities. I love meeting new people. I love speaking with them, finding out about their culture. And so that effort, I think, is a, you know, a way to kind of offset segregation or what is perceived as a segregation. And I think if there's more, you know, sort of behavioral techniques that we can utilize to kind of come out of our shell and interface with persons of other origins, I think that is a good, you know, way to kind of combat segregation. And I'm certain that it affects immigrants in a certain way, but it might also be their strength in certain ways. You know, when you're new to the country, such a big country, and yesterday we were looking at a map, and I saw for maybe the second or third time, to be honest with myself, that Little India. And you know, I really never thought of it that way because it was just written on the map, and so, you know, it was kind of a shock to me.
Okay. From my perspective, segregation is a part of American history. Nobody can deny it's there. It's not going to go away. We as immigrants from Africa, we know that. But the question is, are we here to check on those facts? No. The answer is no. We have different view, or we have different goal for coming over here. And that's why we don't even see that very often. Some cases or some situation, you can feel that you are segregated. But most of the time, you don't pay attention to it at all, period. Because we have other issues to think about. And also, we know that because of the regulation in this country, the laws in this country, people don't show it very openly to foreigners. And that's why we see or we call sometimes that people are so hypocrite. They see you, they smile to you, they show you like they love you with all their heart, but inside them you can read that, you know, there's something wrong. That's the way they say it.
Yes, about the fact that Chicago is the most segregated city. I'm not going to go back again to the to the history portion, but I think as far as Mr. Kokou said, Africans have like a little perspective, a different perspective. Just to give you a quick understanding of Cameroon, for instance, Cameroon has 200 and more tribes, which means technically that we speak more than 200 languages within the same country. So with that in mind, of course we're segregated because we live in the same area already. So that is not actually our concern. We view it as a cultural meeting place. So I would actually say good things about segregation because that helps a lot. I remember back in the days when I was in Canada, when I landed, there was no area where I can see Cameroonians? Where can I see Africans? So it was kind of disappointing that I couldn't actually find a way to find communities. Now, when you come here, at least you might know that, where can I find Polish people? I went to Poland one time and I found out that Chicago was the second largest Polish city at one time. When I was in Poland, I found that out. So I was like, oh my goodness, and this is where I'm from, and I didn't know. So I think it's very important for newcomers, new arrivals, people who are just arriving to have that setting. But I agree also that in the future, keeping things that way might end up leading to prejudice and might be very divisive and really intense stereotyping. We get lucky sometimes because even between African and African American, sometimes we have the fear sometimes of the police, we know the law and everything. So usually, just by our attitude, sometimes we can get away with tickets. Why? Because when the officer comes to us, we call him sir, sir, sir. We go sir back and forth, and he just finds us so nice. And sometimes he differentiates us from other African Americans because he's going to be like, okay, where are you coming from? And maybe the accent will trigger something or one of those things. So it's something that we use at our advantage, as well as we also can suffer the consequences. That's what I think.
Yes, a couple of issues. One, some people come from African speaking. Some people express they get rejected by the white community often, and then sometimes they don't fit in the African American community, or they don't feel comfortable, or they are rejected there or have difficulty. So that sometimes it does make for an uncomfortable situation for them. But there have been attempts to make an African community, at least African. I think maybe I don't know if there'll be this community just composed of Cameroons or whatever. I doubt that. But African communities. But I think there should be commercial areas that service African communities, whether it be grocery. Of course, there's a particular type of cuisine and different types of clothing or some things that you can get in the African community or an African American community that you won't find in other places. So there have been attempts to form, and I'm sure Mr. Kokou he's familiar with that. Like 79th Street, there was an attempt at one time to develop that as and I think there's going to come eventually someplace. But with the other communities, people are right now they're living in different places, but when they socialize, they usually get together on the weekends or whenever they have different events, milestones that they go through. People come together and they're in communication all the time with their communities. But one of the things some people pointed out that the segregation that has occurred and sometimes the difficulty of getting places to live. Sometimes they're putting their kids in schools where they normally or they may have to make arrangements so the kids farther away from school where they would normally attend the school because they live in communities or maybe areas that they not particularly want to live in or would like to live in a better area. So anyway, like I said, I don't know. I think there will be some kind of commercial development in areas, but living in the segregated area, I don't see that happening really in the future.
Well, I have just three points. One is I just want to confirm what you just said. Jordan, that Chicago is indeed the most segregated city. It is not just a perception. It is confirmed by the U.S. Census in the last 2010. U.S. Census that Chicago is indeed the most segregated city in the United States. And this is not just segregated racially. As you can see, you just go down to Chinatown and a mile and a half, you have this whole cluster of Latinos. Right? And you go just a mile and a half south, you have Bridgeport, and a whole cluster of Irish Americans. So this is our reality. But Chicago is not only divided racially, it's also divided by class. So you have here this undocumented Latino labor workers on one hand, and on the other hand of the spectrum, we idealize this Asian model minorities. I am a Filipino immigrant, and that creates a wedge between immigrants themselves because, hey, why don't you become like them? And so this concept of immigrants as being the other, not part of me, they're the other. And so that really runs contrary to our host values, the Unitarian values of oneness, being unified. And so I just want to point out those three factors that really pertains into the non-acceptance of immigrants, that they are different from me, that they are the other.
So some of you guys have touched on the discrimination issues, but now we're going to go into it just a little bit deeper. So since there is so much discrimination against immigrants, especially when they're perceived as illegal, what is your advice to immigrants dealing with this? And we know that discrimination is often caused by ignorance, so what advice or info would you give to people doing the discriminating? And I'm going to start over here with Gary this time.
Okay. Thank you. We believe that we need to organize as a community. We need to organize from a sense of community on several levels. Poles are very spiritual. So we believe in church and community. So church and religion and spiritual is one community. Then we have the community of people which we live with. Okay, then we have the community which we're very well connected with. We're very blessed here that we have a very large television station, a Polish television station, and we have several radio stations in Chicago that are all focused on Polish radio. As the largest community of Poles outside of Warsaw, we're just under 1 million people, it's a big community. So we're very well organized, and we really try and focus people on being connected so that they don't feel so isolated. Conversely, we make sure that we open the doors with people politically also, because the political system can absolutely isolate people and can be very destructive, not constructive, very destructive. So we actually support getting politicians on Polish radio and television and get them to understand our issues. That looking at the lens of American Poles through a typical American lens isn't going to work. As I explained before, you know, if you see something, say something means absolutely nothing to a people of Polish background. It means that I'm not saying a word because there's no way in heck I'm going to disappear. I like my life here. As bad as it may be, I want to live here because it's still very fresh in our head. We generally are trying to get more dialogue going amongst ourselves with the political system. Not that we want to jump full tilt boogie into the political system, but this is a city that used to have lots of politicians of Polish descent that doesn't have anymore. That's our fault. That is absolutely our fault. From the Kuczynski, from the Roman Kuczynski, who was a big family here, to the Rostenkowski, it's gone. The whole political movement of the Polish community has really gone by the wayside. And that's our fault, and we know that. And we need to get politically active so that we can make change. And that's where we see it so far.
I too like living here. and we have to live somewhere. So I think it takes time to sort of get some capacity for tolerance. There will be, you know, what is perceived as discrimination, maybe direct discrimination. These type of things exist in the world, as you know. I think it takes some time to sort of build that tolerance, and as you know, we come up as people, I think that we have a good shot at overcoming these obstacles.
Okay. To me, I believe that, like you said, discrimination most of the time is ignorance. People who lack of knowledge, experience, who think that other people can be discriminated. That's the way I see it. And we as Africans, we feel that we are discriminated even by our own colored people here. And by the way, if you think that way, you find out that, well, should I go that way or should I choose my way? Because we as Africans, we believe that all people should be, friends, love each other, share everything among ourselves. But it don't look like that here. And that's why I believe that if there's any advice to give to those people who discriminate other people, I can say that they can go back to learn about other people, to make a better judgment before act. That's what I can tell.
Okay, yes. My personal belief in this question is that I think the Africans, for instance, should not, or the immigrant, or the undocumented one especially, should not take issues at heart, because, I want to try to define ignorance, but the thing is, if it is not in your program to learn about the fact that Africa is a continent, well, how can you say that it's ignorance? Because it wasn't actually in the set of elements that you were supposed to learn from, So we should consider my feeling from where I've been, where I live in Canada, for instance, and also here. I believe that immigrants should be ambassadors. And that's basically what they should be everywhere in the world where they are. They should actually be ambassadors of their values, their cultures, their ideals. That's the only thing that I think nobody will remove it from us. We can share the same dance. I mean, even the dance, when you think about it, when I see the hip hop today, and I know those things, I see the same moves that we have back then. So that thing didn't get destroyed, even with slavery and all that process. So I think we should be ambassador of those values everywhere we are. We should not take issue at heart. We should take the time to educate. We should become little professors everywhere. Somebody doesn't know about Africa, spend the time to educate him a little bit about your language, your country, how it is, things like that. So we shouldn't take things dramatically. I think.
Well, I guess first of all, for those who get into this shock when they get here, they find that that's a cultural shock. The ones who do get discriminated against, the fact of the matter is, you just have to, first of all, I think they should learn a little bit about the history. And I think they wouldn't be so shocked. They should learn about the history of what's happened in this country prior to. And they need to realize that many things have happened, but I would also tell them they have to persevere, take advantages of the opportunities that are here. They will have to persevere, and hopefully if they do become involved in making some changes. I think I like the way Lewis put it here, that he said people should be ambassadors of their culture, and they should be trying to teach other people behavior. But for those who do the discrimination, you know, obviously on both sides there's an involvement of education. You know, people need to be educated. Most things happen, as he points out, about ignorance. People don't understand people. They don't understand what's happened. They don't understand the history, or they don't understand the people, and they go by stereotypes. So if they really open their minds up and try to learn something about the culture of the other people that they're coming in contact with, and they make an attempt to have relationships with other people and understand other cultures, I think it would be to their benefit to learn those things. But overall, I would just say that the ones that do the discriminating, they need to realize that it does cause a lot of grief for people. It causes a lot of extra stress. It can lead to things such as alcohol, tobacco, drug abuse. It can just cause stress in families and things. So they should be aware of that. But others just gonna have to roll with the punches and just keep trying to educate people so that they do come to understand we're just one people, really. So that's what it comes down to.
Well, I just wanted to confirm that discrimination is not just a perception. It is not just about individual tolerance. Discrimination is real. It's perpetuated by policies and institutions in this country. Racial discrimination is real. Discrimination by class, divisions in class is real. Even discrimination by gender. As everyone knows, you know, women earn the same job. Even a white woman earns only 75% to the dollar of a white man. So discrimination is not just some pity tolerance. It is real. And it's affecting specifically, mostly, immigrants. And they say, okay, go back to the line. Go back to the back of the line. There is no line. Specifically, if you're undocumented, there is no line. There is even no system. Okay, just to show you real quick, Jordan, the broken immigration system. This is how it is. Like, if you are a Cuban and you luckily swam from Havana to Miami Beach, okay, and you're a good swimmer, and you kiss the sand of Miami Beach. This is for real. Kiss the man, you are a refugee. But if you flew from Havana Airport to Miami Beach, to Miami International Airport, you will be sent back because you are not a refugee. Okay, but if you are a Haitian, this is even worse. If you're a Haitian, which is even farther from Havana, and you happen to be in a boat, and you happen to be in Miami Beach, you will be sent back because you are not Cuban. This is called the dry feet, wet feet law. And this is just one minuscule fact of immigration law. So folks, there is no line for undocumented. My cousin waited 25 years to go to the United States. She followed the line. By the time she got here, she's already a grandmother. She gave up. So that is the line. And that's the line for Asians, for Indian Americans, for Filipino Americans, for Chinese Americans. So folks, our system's broken, discrimination is real, and thank you, Jordan, for giving us this panel to speak about it.
Thank you so much for starting that, that energy, because it's the biggest thing that we could say for new arrivals is definitely that reality check, but never, ever, ever tolerate discrimination There's no justification for that. It adds to the segregation. It adds against the opportunities that we're searching for here. It creates that culture of hate, right? And oppression that, that trickles down to different forms of discrimination that clearly was just stated. For us, it's about organizing, and that's where we're organizing, nationally, locally, everywhere. Because it's not coming here and thinking that we're just going to get some type of thing given to us, or we're going to just find the opportunity. You make the opportunity here, just like everybody else did. And so for us, one example is, yes, we're going to go through the discrimination, but we're also organizing to stop it. We're not just going to justify it or say that we're going to tolerate them. Of course not. We also create systems to fight back and show proactiveness of our own community to stop a lot of these thoughts of discrimination against our communities. They want to discriminate us against getting a job, being paid equally because of our gender, because of our race. That groups like us started our own businesses. If they don't want to let us in their business in a fair way, we create our own businesses and stop that other thought of saying that they just take away jobs, they're not productive for our society. So that's why we started Cafe Chicago. It's a cooperative of immigrants who said, we are tired of this discrimination, when compared to the equal type of job that we're given the lower wages, we won't tolerate that. Not only will we create systems to stop that, we'll be holding those people accountable. So for people who are recently arrived, know that there's people here actively organizing to stop that, search for them. Many of them are called, groups that were listed here, or worker centers, which is a new name for a movement of immigrants who come here for opportunities, who've been discriminated in many forms, criminalized, who are saying no, not at all. This country does not belong to anyone, one race, right?
Before I move on to the next question, I just want to say something real quick. Besides doing panel discussions, my organization does workshops, and a couple of years ago I was leading a workshop at Loyola for a group working on homeless issues, and the workshop was on racism and poverty, or racism and diversity issues, and how do we talk about those things with people. And one of the college students that was in the workshop, she said, why do we keep using this word racism? Because there's only one human race, that's it. There aren't more. Just because we have different skin colors does not mean that we are all of different races. There's a human race. There's no aliens. There's no anything else, at least not that we know of. We keep trying to put everybody in that category of you're this and I'm this, and no, we're all the same. We just come in different colors. That's it. So when she said that to me, now I have this, every time I hear that word, racism, I think, oh. But then I keep thinking, well, should I create a new word for this phenomenon? Which isn't going to help it either. We have to use something in order to have the dialogue. So it's a tough subject, and it's a tough word. But the important part is that we have the conversations about it. And we do things like this. We have panel discussions. We have workshops. We have things that facilitate a safe space for those conversations to happen.